Okay, so I decided to make a little breakdown of my submission for the Moving Meditations Challenge by Punisher, and we just make a quick overview over how I set up the whole scene and how I did it in Blender. For the floor I use a very cool add-on called JarchVis. Here you can choose from different presets, and I decided to take the brick wall preset and manipulate it so that the bricks are a little bit bigger. Then I was doing a bevel operation on this brick wall, and after that I was selecting all the meshes and separated by loose parts. This way I was able to manipulate every single stone on the floor. For the individual pieces I was using two more add-ons. One is called one-click damage and the other one is called poly damage, and both add-ons are working in a similar way. So they are adding procedurally imperfections or damage to the selected objects, and this is a good starting point to make our floor look a little bit more realistic. For the back wall I was using the exact same method, so I was using the JarchVis tool for the bricked wall, and after making all the stones individual pieces I was using the poly damage tool to make the stones look a little bit more interesting and a little bit more realistic. The scene was lit with the standard HDRI from Blender called Night. As a next step I was using the remesh modifier to turn every stone piece into a high poly object. This is necessary so we can add in more details by using alpha textures, for example to add in cracks and make the stones look more interesting. The benefit is we can add in much more realism to our scene, but the downside is it really takes a long time to manipulate every single object that we've created so far. So at this point I just turn on some good music and work my way through all of this. For the floor I was using a very cool add-on called Scatter 5, and Scatter 5 is adding vegetation to your scene. In this case I was using some of the presets that comes with this add-on. It's called Wasteland, and this adds in some moss, some rocks, some gravels and grass to my floor. For the background bushes I was using the Sapling-Tree Addon, which is a pretty powerful tool when it comes to customize your own vegetation. So here you can generate trees, bushes, plants, whatsoever, and choose between different presets, or you can fully customize your own little tree by making decisions on branches, on the leaves, on the animations of the wind, the strange, all that kind of stuff. And the best part of all of this is a free add-on. For the background elements I was using the ivy generator, which is a geometry node based system that scatters ivy around the selected collection. The first character was an orc-like creature and is actually a combination of two base meshes. The body base mesh is part of a Basemesh body collection that I bought on ArtStation a while ago, and I took the monster's head from the Bad King's Mega Monster Pack, which you can download for free and use for your personal stuff. And actually on this basis I was creating my own little character. In preparation for the retopology I had to symmetrize the character, which was a little bit sad because it kind of kills the likeness of the original design of the orc, but it makes the process of retopology a little bit faster and a little bit easier for me. And the retopo is a classical step-by-step thing, so you start with the essential loops for the face and the body, and then just trying to fill the gaps with quads. And I really start to enjoy this process, so once again I was just turning on some good music and try to solve the puzzle. The process after the retopology is a little bit complicated and took me some time to understand. So first off, we have to subdivide the low poly character until we get high poly count that we need for detailing the skin. First off, we have to make a vertex group to exclude the inner mouth, the inner nose, the inner eyes and the inner ears, so that the shrink wrap modifier will not mess up our topology. Then we are using the shrink wrap modifier to better match the low poly character to the high poly character. Next, we duplicate this character and apply all the modifiers of the copy. This way we are creating sort of like a second high poly character, but with the poly flow of the low poly character. Now we are deleting all the modifiers from our original retopo character and apply the mirror modifier. Then we take the multi-res modifier and apply the same subdivision level as we did in the first step. After this, we take our high poly retopo character and reshape it with our multi-res character. This way we are creating sort of like different levels of details for a low poly character, which is perfect for rigging and rendering later on. Then we have to clean up the mesh because the shrink wrap modifier causes some issues to the mesh, and then it's time for detailing the skin. Therefore, you can download free resources, for example at Pixologic, where you have a big library with different pores, skins and other textures that you can download for free and use for your character to make this a little bit more interesting. Then it's time to unwrap the character and lay out the UVs to prepare the model for the texturing process, which I mainly do in Substance Painter. Here I'm working with different paint layers to really stylize the orc skin and try to make an interesting look for the overall character. For the human character I choose a similar approach, but this time I had two base meshes with already pretty good polyflow, so I only had to join the topology of both base meshes and try to merge the different quads so that it is one mesh. And with this approach I was able to skip the retopology process, which really saves a lot of time. Then I took the multi-res modifier again to boost up the poly count for the detailing stage, and then just start to add some bony landmarks to the base mesh to prepare for later rigging and texturing. Because of the multi-res modifier I was able to add in some details as I did with the orc character and start to add some pores and some wrinkles to the face, even though it's not really visible in the later render. After some rough texturing in Substance Painter, the human character was ready for close simulation, which I did in Marvelous Designer. In Marvelous Designer I was trying to go for a monk's habit style kind of clothes and try my best to simulate the clothes properly. During the simulation I realized that the character's hands are interacting too much with the cloth, so I returned to Blender and removed the hands and tried to simulate again, and this seems to fix some of the issues that I had with the cloth simulation. Then I exported the simulation as a point-to-cache file and took the OBJ file that comes with the export and took it to Substance Painter to quickly texture the monk's habit. Back in Blender you have to import the OBJ file and be sure that keep vertex order is enabled. Then you add the mesh cache modifier to the OBJ and set the type to point-to-cache. Then you import the point-to-cache file that comes with Marvelous Designer and set the frame to 1 so that the close simulation matches the character's movement. After this, I repeated the whole process for the orc's character, simulate the clothes, texture the clothes and re-import it into Blender with the mesh cache modifier. Then it's a back and forth and a lot of creative decision that leads to the final render. I rendered out both the orcs and the human scene and combined both scenes in After Effects later on. In the composite I used different VFX passes to spice up the image. For the background I used some stormy cloud to higher the visual interest of the overall scene. Then I added a few rain passes and some dripping water effects for more realistic image. Then I added some stock footage from Triune films to enhance the electric feel and the sparks in the image. And lastly, for the character transformation, I used some stock footage from ActionVFX for the transition. For the glow in the hands of the both characters, I use an empty plane axis and added a transformation constraint that was linked to the left and the right hand of the character. And then I added some point lights to kind of create the glowing effect inside the hands. Okay, that's it. That's how I created my little submission for the Moving Meditations challenge. It was a lot of fun and I learned a ton. So thank you for the challenge and good luck for all the competitors out there.